Welcome in. It is day 77, and you're speaking with the Meeples Champion. So today we're going to be jumping into one of my favorite game mechanics, and one of the first games that I played that was purely this mechanic, which was a surprise. I wasn't expecting that in a board game style. I was used to that if you were getting this by itself in the collector's type side, which was less board games, more cards. That is a deck builder, and that is called the DC deck building game. So the DC deck building game is really interesting because the concept is simple. You first get to pick a large card, which is going to be your hero. It's a permanent, constantly there. You're going to get a special ability that you get to use for the game. Then you're going to get your starter deck, and then you're going to shuffle up and set out your buying row, essentially, for all your different types of heroes or villains. Then you're going to also have your villains deck. And what you're doing is you're slowly building your deck, and whenever somebody's finally built up enough that they're able to go for it, they're going to try to defeat the villain. And if they do, they're going to get a reward and their card. And you're going to keep doing this until eventually you've gone through whatever the scenario you set up is. You know, your stack of villains has been defeated. And then you're going to look and see what your actual VP is for all the cards that you've collected. It's very simple, but it's a very fun game. I've really enjoyed it. I've played it a few different times, and for me, this game hit real easy, and I loved, even though I'm a bigger Marvel fan, I still love DC. I grew up watching Superman, Batman, I was a Flash fan, big fan of the Green Arrow. So it's cool to have a game where I get to play with all these superheroes that I remember, watching on TV in these cartoons or these live actions. Not as big of a fan of their movies, but I loved that side of them. And I thought that this really represented it well. So why don't we jump right in and let's talk about our 7 categories. Category 1, art. This game is literally all about the art. The box sells the theme, sells the game. You pull it out, all it is cards with art of your favorite heroes and villains. It's a giant thumbs up on the art. Components. Yet again, pretty straightforward. It is cards. They didn't skimp. They knew what they had, and they went all out on those cards. They made sure that those cards were going to be able to last long term. They're not easily rippable. They're not going to wear. I can't see this being a game that if I played it every day is going to in year be a messed up deck unless I spilled something on it. So really good components. Thumbs up. Your price. This isn't that expensive. I want to say this goes for about $40, which is really where I would expect it to be. This is not something that should be in that 50 to 60 range. It's not a big enough game there inside. It's a good game. It's not a lot in this box. So I think that that's a good pricing. You're finding this in not every board game store, but 2, maybe 3 out of 5. If you go to a Target, I think that you're going to find those there. And if you go to a Barnes & Noble, you'll find them there. So it's around. It's well known, easy to get, not expensive. Thumbs up on that price. The difficulty. It's a deck builder. It's a very straightforward deck builder. It's not a lot to figure out there. You've got your cost to buy or defeat. You've got your things that tell you what points they're worth. You get your things that tell you, what special ability it does. It's all on the card. It's not hard to figure it out. And that's all you have to worry about is what do the cards say? It's very, very simple. I think it's extremely easy to play. Yeah, this may not be something that I'm going to bring my 10-year-old to right away. But at the same time, I don't think a 10-year-old couldn't play this game. I think that this is a game that is easy to play, but has strategy within it. And that as long as the theme strikes for a kid, I think a kid could sit down and figure this game out, or at least enough to enjoy it. Thumbs up on the difficulty. Replayability. This one kind of gets in there in an interesting way because I do think it's replayable, but I don't find myself playing this very often. I think this is tough because for a game group, it's just the one mechanic. And today we're so used to in our bigger experienced game groups playing with these multi-mechanics where it's a thinker type night that this one just doesn't get to the table. It's unfortunate, but for me, it's just experienced players and those expert players don't bring this out very often. I think for beginners and for kids, this is a game that you'll see replayed a bunch. So I think it all depends on where you kind of fall in that range. But for me, I'm going to have to judge this on my experience. And while I really like the game, I think it's optimal to play it at 4-player, 5-player if you can. But I never have a chance. I only played it there once. And so that was like 3 years ago. And since when I pull it out, it's just one-on-one with my wife on occasion. So I have to give it a thumbs down. It just doesn't do it enough for me. Even though I really like the game, it's just not getting out there. Your keys to victory. Keys to victory are pretty straightforward. We're going to build our deck. We're going to defeat all the main villains. And then we're going to count our points. You are having to decide while you're building your deck on what your strategy is. Are you going to build a deck that's more about causing you to have the ability to build the big villain? Or are you going to invest more in cards that are going to pay out for you so that you have more points from them? And say, hey, I can still get the big villain, but I'm going to make sure my deck is ready. There's not really much beyond those two, and I don't feel either one of them is a clear-cut favorite. So it's a thumbs up because those keys to victory are evened, and the game is what it is. Unique. Sorry, game. You're not unique. I also have the Teen Titans DC deck building game. There's like 3 or 4 others. There's loads of deck building games outside of that particular theme. You know, I've got another one that's a solo play or a co-op play for G.I. Joe. That's essentially the same concept of that deck of bad guys you're going through. It plays different, but still, it's just a deck building game. It's not unique. I like the game, but it just doesn't do enough for me. And that's why it doesn't get picked for game nights, because, you know, we have other deck builders that like, hey, if we want to do this, we can just play Clank, and we're going to get half of this game in the deck building and then a whole bunch of other mechanics. So it's not unique. I got to give it a thumbs down. Overall, what do I think of this game? I really like the game. I think it's a fun time. I think if you have kids or if you're really big into superheroes or DC, it's going to be a hit for you. So I definitely recommend you give it a try. And I think this is one that you might find yourself adding to the collection just because it's not that expensive. It's going to be an easy grab. And there's enough DC deck buildings out there that if you're not huge into, say, the Justice League, you can go and you can pick another theme within the DC area and pick it. I initially got Teen Titans after playing. I just so happened to get this one not that long ago because somebody was giving it to me for free. And I said, yes, please. So yeah, I think it's a great one. But that's just my experience. You guys go out there, give it a try, see what you think. Well, it has been day 77. You've been talking with me about the DC deck building game, and you've been speaking to the Meeples champion. Like, share, subscribe, and check down below in the description where I'm going to be adding in an Amazon link so that if you are interested, you can go pick this up for yourself. Until next time, I'll talk to you tomorrow.